this particular subject area is really exciting. We're looking at food as medicine. So what do we mean by that in terms of ensuring quality, safety, and the science of what we eat? We've had some fantastic speakers grace our stage, already give us a lot of food for thought. Sorry, excuse the pun. So let's dive into some of the details with our wonderful experts. Allow me, please, to introduce them all on stage. Farah Hillou, the Precision Nutrition of Consumer Genomics at M42. Farah, please come and join us on stage. Simon Miller, Conformity Programs Specialist at Abu Dhabi Quality and Conformity Council. Please give Simon a big warm welcome. And Dr. Wael El Amin, who is the Medical Director of Environmental Sciences Integrated Health Solutions Platform M42. Please give all my panelists a very warm welcome. And may I please encourage them all to pick up your microphones so we are ready to dive in. So, Dr. Wael, we are back on stage together. It's always wonderful to share the stage with you. So, day 2 here of Abu Dhabi Global Health Week. Let's give our audience an insight in terms of the area that you work in and the intersection when we discuss food and medicine.
Amandeep, it's as always nice being in stage with you. I think over the time of transition from taking care of humans to taking care of what's around humans, with a firm understanding is one affects the other with a direct effect, whether that's the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. And sitting at that intersection has led to humility. The more I understand, the more I know I don't know. So we're sitting at a place where we make a lot of assumptions, yet our understanding, despite being in this planet for millennia, is quite lacking. We know a lot more about the planet's afar than we do about the food we eat.
I feel like you're quoting Donald Rumsfeld at us, so I do appreciate that. So let's just look at your area of expertise. You have an extensive background in molecular microbiology and public health. I'm interested, how do you envisage this in terms of the integration of environmental surveillance data like food and water and the analysis of this in shaping our nutritional guidelines?
So over the last 15 years, there's been an explosion in the tools and utilities that we have to understand the molecules at a greater level, whether that's using mass spec, molecular methods with genomics. Everyone around probably remembers the COVID pandemic and the PCR and the rapidity by which we developed tests. Yet we haven't utilized these tools apart from economic gain, i.e., breeding of cattle or selection of certain species. Even if you're in primary school, we're all aware of the broiler chickens in the Netherlands and how they've selected, for example, the Friesian cows into certain species. Yet as consumers, we haven't used these tools to understand why our strawberry remains fresh for 60 days. And no one's asking these questions. And whether the content that we have in the strawberries that you go and pick today from, and strawberries is just a fruit, it could be any other fruit. The levels of antifungals that we have are actually safe for our consumption. Do they have a downstream effect in our response in biology? And we also tend to forget that a lot of the medicines that we use have been found within that intersection of environment. So whether it's quinine, which we use for chloroquine, which was later on adapted to become an anti-cancer drug, whether you're, the big molecules that you use for treatment of whether infections or antibiotics, they're common, and they're common within your food system. Yeah, what I teach my students is evolution is like IKEA. Once it finds a good trick, it repeats it.
Okay, so you've given us some really interesting challenges in terms of there's lots of oversight. There's not enough of investigation in terms of what we could find in nature and experimenting the application. So there's some interesting starting points there. Farah, I'm going to bring in you now, and not only because you and I are bookending this panel with a lot of color, but I do appreciate that. Farah, you have an expertise in precision nutrition. What do we mean by that, and where does it cut into this intersection of food as medicine?
Absolutely. Thank you, Amandeep. And I think we're suiting very well with the M42 colors as well. So when we speak about precision nutrition and under the umbrella of, let's say, precision health, it's really understanding at a deeper level how our genes, our epigenetics, how they can impact, let's say, what we eat and vice versa, right? So it's how what we eat and the nutrients that we consume impact us at a genetic or genomic level, at a cellular level. And that's really what precision nutrition is. It's you're empowered with information and the knowledge in terms of what you should go for, as opposed to moving away from more generalized guidelines and having these deeper insights that help empower you to make more informed and better decisions, food decisions that are appropriate for you.
And that's really key and speaks to the heart of what M42 is really focused on. What you say there echoes some of our key speakers that were here on the stage earlier, Dr. Megan Rossi, Matt Roberts, and Dr. Ahmad George just now as well. So these are really pertinent issues. So to have you here to delve into them deeper is phenomenal. I'm going to ask a quick follow-up question. When it comes to personalized dietary interventions, what should we be thinking about, and where is public health strategy in line with this?
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's really making these informed decisions in terms of, what foods to choose. And from the public health perspective, it's things like, for example, nutrition labeling programs, the Sahih, for example, food program, where, you can scan, let's say, a barcode or just kind of eye the label, and gives you a lot of information in terms of what the ingredients, the nutrition content, certain allergens, and it's information, again, that serves to help you make more informed decisions. And that's kind of at a public health level where you're talking about, implementing it at scale and empowering individuals to make these better choices that serve as, medicine, and to really kind of fuel and nourish the body.
Interesting, really interesting. And Farah, you allow me to seamlessly bring in Simon Miller, because you mentioned their public health. Now, Simon Miller, you are the Conformity Programs Specialist at the abbreviation of ADQCC. Inform our audience who might not know about the organization. What are you focusing on, and what's the key kind of areas going forward?
Thank you. Just as you said, to give a brief introduction to the Abu Dhabi Quality and Conformity Council, ADQCC, we're actually a council of regulators within the Emirate of Abu Dhabi that are tasked with helping with diversification of the economy and supporting the growth of quality infrastructure within the Emirate. So really our role is to help with regulators when they need to be supported with things like testing, with standards development, with let's say, new technologies and introduction of new manufacturing capabilities into the Emirate. When it comes to nutrition and when it comes to food, we've been heavily involved in the testing of food, and we effectively are the control labs for ADAPSA, for the Food Control Authority for Abu Dhabi. This is part of our legacy. Many of the employees were part of ADAFCA previously and ADAPSA before they became part of QCC as well. On top of this, we work with Department of Health, Abu Dhabi Public Health Centre, in supporting their regulations and implementation of those regulations into the market through testing and also through conformity and standards programs as well. Conformity and Standards Specialist, which is my role, is really working with the different regulators, working with industry, and bridging across the needs of regulation and the needs of industry, and also the capabilities of quality infrastructure, testing, inspection, and certification to develop programs to be able to assure quality, safety, conformity of products and services within the market. That's the general overview, really.
And it's really good to get that comprehensive insight in terms of what you're working on, but also the challenges and the advancements here as well. When we speak about ensuring safety and quality of food, and this new word that I learned, nutraceuticals, tell me what that means, and what does it mean in terms of the application of the UAE?
I think this is, an interesting time when it comes to food, because traditionally food has obviously been there for nutrition, and from a conformity and standards perspective, it's important to be able to assure that it's safe, right? Safe for consumption. It's not going to make you ill. In terms of nutrition, this is something that has been more important, and a lot of different regulators and countries, including the UAE, have adopted nutritional labeling requirements. Typically on the back of the packaging for food, and this has to be assessed and this has to be tested and assured. But now we come to a new type of food which is making more assumptions and claims in terms of its function. Rather than just giving you nutrition, it also maybe gives you other qualities and has a performance aspect to it as well.
Fantastic. It's been really beneficial to hear you all set out the context in which you're working, but also your specialist areas. And now I think this is a chance for us to go in deeper. Dr. Wael, when we talk about the use of AI and technology, leveraging and enhancing our understanding of the data that we're collecting, how can that possibly help us when it comes to using technologies to enhance our understanding of the relationship between environmental factors and dietary health outcomes?
A lot of the illnesses that we face are affected by two variables, what we call the antigen, i.e. the effector, and the antibody or the immune response. And a great example that affects...
In case we didn't catch those words, they were...
Okay, so the let's call it the immune system,
Okay.
what triggers your immune system,
Yes.
and the cells that take the action, the inflammation that follows. So for example, if you have hay fever, you're subjected to hay, you start itching and sneezing. With regards to food, the most famous one is celiac disease, wheat, yeah, or wheat products. Farah can tell us a bit more about that later. If you're exposed to them, and I can see an eminent immunologist standing at the back there, he can probably also tell us a bit more. If you're exposed to a certain type of wheat, and it's not all types of wheat, by the way, and then you end up with an immune response, which ends up with an inflammation in the bowel. So what we're trying to say is actually now we're collating all of this data about all of these foods. We've got the EGP with data about the humans and the differences in them. So some people would be having a certain type of immune response. Some of us can eat bread, some of us can't. Some of us can eat peanuts, some of us can't. Some of us can tolerate strawberries, some of us can't. Some of us can tolerate kiwis, some of us can't. With all of that picture and our ability to test all of these variables under one roof, under one data set, putting them all together, along with the genome that we are currently also sequencing, we may just be able to understand these effector cells and the downstream effects of all of that. So that's probably one of the best advantages that we have at the moment. Not many places have that ability where testing all of these variables are sitting on the same server with a lot of smart people who are able to access that data and make a lot of sense of it.
And so taking two of those examples, you mentioned hay fever and celiac disease. If you are able to use the data to leverage it, you're able to pre-warn people? I mean, what's the difference with what currently we might be doing with that new data and the AI?
At the moment, the process is someone would be having celiac disease for 30, 40 years with a lot of symptoms and they're not aware of it. But the celiac, the method is you start getting symptoms, you end up going to your doctor, you get investigated, you get labeled as being having IBS, possibly, probably, usually. Then you go through the cycle of getting a biopsy from your duodenum, and then you get the histopathologist, a very long process. So the question is, can we start understanding early on who's likely to get it and who's not, based on which allergen that they're exposed to. So it may be rice, it may be a certain type of rice, it may be wheat, it may be a certain type of wheat. So can we start helping people by categorizing them early on based on predictability?
Interesting, because I think that ties into what Farah was talking about, the genetic understanding. So Farah, on that note, to bring you in about leveraging the new tech and AI.
Thank you. So to complement what Dr. Wael was saying, from the other angle, let's say we conduct several, tests where we can identify an individual's predisposition or risk to things like allergies, their ability to metabolize and break down nutrients. And again, it goes back to, at a genetic level, we could be consuming the same diet, but ultimately your ability to break down and metabolize certain vitamins and minerals can be very different to myself. So empowering individuals with that kind of knowledge can really help approach food choices from a more targeted perspective. And so it's the genomic data that you can have, and then how you can tailor the food choices that you make. But of course, what you can, you've got, let's say, the genomic data, but then it's what an individual can tolerate based on their exposure. So we are exposed to various chemicals from the food that we eat, from the air, the water. This is wherever you are in the world, you are exposed to several chemicals. And also understanding, obviously, how you can optimize from a genetic perspective, your ability to detoxify, how you can optimize your detoxification pathways, inflammatory responses. So again, that falls back on what kind of genomic data you can get access to really promote your health, improve your dietary choices, improve different pathways in the body through diet, through nutraceuticals. So again, it's knowledge is power, and this is how we can utilize genomic medicine and genomic science with, let's say, food science and nutrition as well.
So it really is cutting edge. And as you say, that type of precise intervention is about being proactive rather than reactive. I often say that on the stage when I'm on stage with M42 experts.
Absolutely. And you're addressing health from more of a prevention and health optimizing, right? Because I know that, for example, my ability to detoxify, for example, whatever certain toxins or chemicals is very low. How can I build on this through lifestyle and through diets? And so it's really approaching health from that prevention and that proactive and that personalized approach.
Fantastic. And that's such a strong word, prevention and optimizing your health. Simon, I know you're eager to come in, so please.
No, and I just wanted to add a little piece to this as well, that this information that we're gathering now about how we interact with food and additives and ingredients in food and how they can cause allergies or reactions or any kind of other medical let's say problems is now being able to be fed back into the standardization and the communication and information about food as well. And a surprisingly large number of the chemicals and the additives and the ingredients that we have to measure and put limits on and have expectations on how they will affect diet are based on really very little information about what is actually happening to the general population. Now you start to gather that information on the population, on their genomics, on their metabolism, and utilize that to really have a deeper understanding and set much more defined targets in terms of what is acceptable for a lot of ingredients and chemicals in the food, and then translate that into regulation.
And in terms of regulation, that means that has an impact on, for example, local food producers, the labeling of food and the information that's shared.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the strengths really of the UAE and the kind of studies and the kind of information that we're gathering here, of course, as well, is that we have such this diverse population that when we gather information about people and their, let's say, food allergies and their reactions, this is something that we can really use to translate globally into setting of standards globally and harmonizing standards that local producers, international producers can then adopt into them of their food systems.
And that's really interesting. Dr. Wael, you wanted to come in?
What Simon just said is quite important. It's not only where we sit here is a very unique position, whereby M42 as a company is working very closely with the regulator, QCC, trying to help inform these decisions, but that's based on active and actual and ongoing testing. So a lot of the foods that we are eating at the moment are being tested within the central testing laboratory here in Abu Dhabi to ensure that it's fulfilling the regulation that the regulator is making. But we're also looking at the next stage or the future state of feed and food, whether it's from a security level, what foods and feeds we should be having with changing economics and geopolitics, what sort of foods we should or shouldn't be allowing, and what isn't or isn't safe. There's also an activation mechanism in case there's an outbreak with, in the news at the moment, there's an outbreak with bird flu or with foot and mouth. Part of what we do is also we are in standby continuously to support the region with these tests.
So very responsive to live data. Now, we've got a few minutes on the clock. Any quick questions? Very quick. We're going to get some mics to you. Anybody else? So I can just make sure we're teed up. Okay, so you have the floor, but quick question.
Okay. Hello. Hi. My name is Reem Al Amiriya. I'm a pharmacist and a health communication specialist. The question is I followed a lot, especially when you say precision nutrition. Are we talking about the DNA tests in terms of, because I had one done for my parents a while ago, and it just was more confusing than ever. Maybe that was early stages because I'm talking about maybe 5 years back. How accurate is it right now? And how accessible is it? Accessible in terms of finding it, the right ones, and in terms of cost.
Absolutely, a really valid question. So Farah, if you'd like to take that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so in terms of how accurate are these tests, I mean, we utilize, whole genome sequencing. So basically the technologies that we utilize to look at a person's whole genome is pretty very, let's say, highly advanced, put it that way. Now, no doubt, when you do these tests, you do get an abundance of data. So it's how do you relate it to an individual at that point in time? How do you break the information into kind of bite-sized information that they can utilize, that they can make use of at this point in time, like short-term and long-term? And it's who helps interpret the data as well. So availability, we have our own tests. I'm happy to discuss this with you later on. And again, the abundance of information is there. It's how can you utilize it in a practical way, in a science-based way in your current life. And we know that, obviously, especially with nutrition and health, we are bombarded with so much information, especially on social media. So it's really to vet out, what's credible and what's not credible. And we need to do our due diligence in terms of, doing our own research. And of course, referring back to well-versed healthcare practitioners who really understand how to read these genomic tests.
Absolutely. And on that note of what you just said, 2 points to emphasize. We are bombarded with an abundance of information, which is why we need experts like you to come on stage. And I understand that we are talking at a more top level here, but there is more room to dig into this. And on that second note, to say that Farah and our experts and Dr. Megan Rossi, who's with us, she gave a wonderful TED talk earlier, they're around, super approachable. So if you have burning questions that you want to give them off stage, please do. But because we are running out of time, I'm just going to give you a chance to give a one-sentence call to action, looking at the future. It's a challenge, but you all can rise to the challenge. Food as medicine, a call to action in one sentence. What would you like to see going ahead? Farah, you've been speaking, so let's put Dr. Wael on the spot, then Simon. So Dr. Wael?
Conspiracy theories are all incorrect. We're living much longer despite all of the food and the bad food that we're eating. Don't be that scared and be afraid. We are looking at a different stage now of actually improving that, rather than being afraid of it.
I love it. It's a sense of optimism, if not with an optimistic voice, though. All is a neutral tone, but optimism in your message. So let's be optimistic. Simon.
Actually, there's a point that Dr. Wael made at the start that I wanted to bring back to, which was regarding produce, and you gave the example of a strawberry. Do we have the data now to confirm that produce is less nutritious than it was, let's say, 50 years ago? And if we know that, what are we going to do about it? What's next?
Interesting.
Because we're talking about nutrition of food, but if we're making our food less nutritious just by nature, then we need to change something.
And you've both mentioned strawberries a lot. I'm getting hungry. Farah, give us a different fruit and give us a different perspective.
Okay, so just to add on to what Dr. Wael said, yes, we are living longer. Our lifespan has increased, but our health span, that's debatable, right? And so this is where one of the main pillars of health, which is nutrition, of course, aside from physical activity, sleep, stress management, and whatnot. So food as medicine, it's really, we all have the power with every spoonful that we have. We are choosing to nourish our bodies. Food is medicine, but food is also information, right? It's how all of these nutrients are, working together, working with your genes, working with your microbiome, to fuel your body at a cellular level. It's driving the different pathways. So ultimately, again, it's that being very conscious and aware of what it is that we're eating, and to understand that ultimately we're dictating how we feel day in and day out with every spoonful that we have.
And that's a powerful message. Food is medicine, but food is also information. And this has been super informative and inspiring. Audience, please give my panelists a big round of applause.